to its fullest potential. Be sure to follow us on social media and search Today with Tally. Be sure to subscribe, follow, and share the program as well. Ladies and gentlemen, your host of the evening, Mr. Brian Tally.
Welcome back to Today with Tally podcast, where we add real life value to the lives of everyday people. Folks, it has never been easier to listen to this podcast. We are on YouTube, Spotify, Amazon Music, iHeartRadio, Twitter, and Facebook. Simply search Today with Tally. And be sure to like, share, and subscribe to get every episode and stay up to date with the latest and greatest our guests in this show has to offer. Folks, we have a very special guest joining us on today's program. But first, let me tell you about a company that is based out of Canyon City, Colorado. Now, Chase's Choice is an industry leader in cannabis and hemp products and continues to heal those in need. Whether you are struggling from physical pain, anxiety, depression, or having trouble sleeping, there is a product for you that will improve your quality of life. Ken, the founder of Chase's Choice, continues to engage in open conversation on the benefits of cannabis and hemp, CBD, CBG, CBN, THC, and all of the other cannabinoids found in the plant through extensive research and development. To learn more, visit Chase's Choice online today at chaseschoice.org. That's chaseschoice.org, or call Ken directly, 719-371-0768. That's 719-371-0768. Now, CBD was Chase's Choice. What's yours? Folks, always remember to consult with your doctor before starting any alternative medicine products, and always check with your state and local municipalities on the laws regarding the use of CBD and hemp products. Now, folks, today we have a very special guest joining us on today's program, like I said here a few minutes ago. And let me set this up. Now, Steffan Tubbs is somebody that I used to listen to every single morning back when I had my company in Colorado. I've always been an AM talk guy, and it was the Colorado Morning News on the 50,000-watt voice of the Rocky Mountain West on 850 KOA. You can hear Steffan Tubbs every single morning, just bringing it strong and really getting me up and going in the morning with current events, local news, sports, Broncos, Rockies, you name it. We talked about it. And with that, I'd like to bring in my good friend with AM710 now, KNUS in Denver, Colorado, Steffan Tubbs. How are you, sir?
Brian, it is great. It's awesome to hear that you used to listen to me, when you were like 12 and I was probably 40. But the thing is, I'm not there anymore, but I had a great run. And now I get to do talk radio, a lot of news. I still do a lot of breaking news, and I still do a lot of travel and everything. But the position that I have now, truly, and I mean this, and I think it's a great way to start, is I get now with my format, I get to meet people like you. And you've been on the show. You've been on the show at least 2 or 3 times. And if I may, I promise I'm the guest. I realize this is your show, but I am so damn proud of you. And brother, the fight, the tenacity, the highs, the middle ground, the lows that I know, you have shared here on your own podcast series and in your book and on the air. You know what? I'm the lucky guy to know you. You are a tremendous human being, somebody that, lesser people would have given up and you did not. So that'll be my only opening, trying to take over your podcast.
Steffan, that sincerely means a lot to me, especially to a guy that I used to listen to all the time in the morning. I could always, that familiar voice on the radio. That's something that I always, enjoy. And yeah.
I mean it, brother.
Thank you so much, man. That really means a lot to me. I know you played a monumental role, really, in the successful passage of the Tally Bill. I've been on your show at least 3 times. Then I was in studio once, even in Denver, in your AM710 KNUS studio in Denver. And, that was a good show. It's supposed to be 10 minutes. I think I went 2 hours.
You know what that is you got a story to tell. I like to think, and, I know we'll talk a little bit about some of the documentary films I've been able to put out in the last decade or so, but everybody's got a story. That's kind of been my mantra. But there are individuals we come across, their stories just may be a little more compelling or engaging. And, your story is one of those that I won't forget. And it falls into the area where I have, tried to dedicate so much of my outside the job life, and that is to our veterans and to our military. And, you exposed something with your story that, something's just not right. And I wish that there would be more. I think the world would be a better place. It might be a little more chaotic than it even is now if people would actually stand up, speak up, and have the tenacity like you, and they don't give up. But for every one of you, I think person like you to get to the tally bill, et cetera, and the fighting and the blood, sweat, and tears, I think there's probably 10,000 that just would have given up. And that's why I think your story is so great, and that's why you're such a good guest, is because you embellish nothing. You just have this story, and then you keep the family together. And I watch your kids grow up on social media, and you continue to kick ass, and it's very, very admirable to watch from my side of things.
1%. That's all I do, is just 1% better each and every day, and it keeps me aligned. It keeps me in the moment. It keeps me dialed in and locked in the present. And I don't forget to do the little things, to eat right, to continue with my intermittent fasting, to continue with my Bible scripture in the morning for 5 minutes to get my day going. There's so much little things that you can do to really, improve the quality of your life, going on those mindfulness walks and all that other stuff, and really living a life of gratitude. That's what's really helped me out over the years. And again, it's coming across folks like you that have helped really push that word and get that message out there clean and clear and concise, where everybody can understand what's going on. Yeah. and get in, get people involved and call to action, if you will, to really just, bring this stuff to the surface where people can digest it and work together, with a good common cause to help fix things that are broken in our country. Because trust me, we've got plenty of that going on, especially, as you well know, being in the AM talk radio world.
Oh yeah, listen, the amount of topics at hand for all of us to certainly not just have an opinion and send an angry tweet. That's the one thing, excuse me, that I think one of the reasons why some of the qualities that I admire you is, it's one thing to be the angry old man, get off my lawn. It's another to be the social media warrior, and I call them trolls because in talk radio, you get it all the time. It's like, wait a minute, if you really, really feel, first of all, I'm sorry, on a controversial topic, you feel, not you, of course, but a listener, somebody out there, a stranger I'll never, ever meet. If you feel so adamant about it that you're basically wishing me cancer because you disagree with something, why don't you just pick up the phone and call? That's the way you can do it. Instead, we live in a society that you can drop your mean tweet, you can do your Facebook postings, you can not really, forgive me, we're kind of the same generation. Man up was the big thing. Nobody seemingly, not a lot of people do that anymore. And the way in which we live today and the things that we see, this is the time. I don't want to be, and I know I can speak for you as a friend and you're a father. I don't want to have another 20 years go by for me and look back and go, man, did I say enough? Did I do enough? Did I act enough? Did I put myself out there? And I wish more people could kind of get into that. Look, you may fail. I testified within the last month in front of a House committee at the Colorado State Capitol. I had never done that here in Colorado. I had done it in other parts of the country where I'd worked, and I'd go out and let politicians know, or I'd go on the record. But this one, and I'm thinking, how come with all of the problems, how come more people don't do this? Not to say that I'm any better. It's just, if you really, really are concerned about the way things are going in this world, it is time for all of us with a voice to certainly stand up.
Yeah, absolutely. And I know what you do is not an easy job. I mean, it's a job that's probably filled with a lot of anxieties, especially when you get your hate mail and people wishing bad things upon you. Do you ever feel as if sometimes when you're out in town that you may have a target on your back?
That's a good question. The reason I say it is because if there's ever a time, it's been the last couple of years. I really don't. I have been in rooms, let's just say at a press conference or down at the Capitol or City Hall, and I most certainly know that I'm not the favorite guy in the room. Sometimes I think it's been made evidently clear that it's that guy and he's the guy. Now, what the really weird thing is, Brian, we did this documentary film in 2020 called Denver and Decay, and it's had almost 800,000 views. And for our small production company, that's pretty good. 800,000 views on YouTube. Any of you watching now, you can see it for free on YouTube. And before that, and this was, I guess I should stop and say, in 60 days during the summer of hell 2020 here in Denver, we had back to back nights of rioting. Not one politician, Republican or Democrat, seemingly did a damn thing. They didn't say anything. It took the mayor of Denver 6 weeks to say absolutely anything. The governor went inside his gopher hole. Nobody did anything. And I lost friendships because I was simply telling the truth. Now, of course, it's the way I see things, and I look at things through a conservative lens. But I tried to do that documentary film simply to say, yo, folks, wake the F up here. Here's what's going on. So long answer to your question, I don't feel like a target, but I certainly have in my effort to pursue the truth, whatever that should be. Definitely when you stick on that path and you can't waver, there's either the truth or it's not. And I stuck on that path and I lost friendships, including friendships of politicians that, trust me, this morning I was able to get up just fine. I didn't lose any sleep.
I do remember 2020 very well. When I was in Denver, I took a 7-state road trip and I was hitting every congressional office in every congressional district in my way over a 5-day period. And when I went to the Capitol building in Denver, I had to cross through Antifa battle lines, if you will. And it was absolutely insane. I didn't feel completely threatened. But at the same time, I had to do a Facebook Live just to make sure that if something were to happen, it would be on record, and it would be, something that everybody could see. But what I saw is unlike anything I have ever witnessed. And that Facebook Live I did actually went viral. I think there's been 1 million views, and it even prompted former Governor Bill Owens to reach out to me, which we are now friends, and said, I had no idea. I've worked out of that building for 20 years, 8 as a governor. And the crazy thing is I thought I would never see everything the way it was. The Capitol completely spray painted, the windows broken. I mean, the statue.
Brian, they removed that Civil War statue.
Yeah. And
as we speak, what is it? So it's mid-April 2023. We're coming up on 3 years since that trash was tolerated, so to speak, that behavior that nobody did and anything about, and very little ramifications at all. That Civil War statue that had stood on the west steps of the Colorado State Capitol, looking to the west in the Rocky Mountains, that is now in a museum a couple of blocks away because they didn't want to offend anybody. That is one of the biggest things on my program. That look, I consider myself a lover, not a fighter, somebody with a compassionate heart. If you've got a beef, if you have a different view, so be it. Let's have a dialogue about it. And at the end of the day, we don't have to wish each other to get into a car accident. You know what? Hey, I disagree with you. You disagree with me, but let's go have a beer type thing. And within our lifetime, brother, that kind of dialogue happened. Not anymore. And to your point, and I'm glad Governor Owens, a good friend of mine for a long time, and he's a good man. He will be the last Republican governor in Colorado. I'm going to go out on a limb and say you and I will be dead. There will never be another Republican governor here in Colorado as long as I live, and as long as, I think, in our lifetimes. But it's just a different time. But now it's not dialogue. It's, you're a racist, you're a homophobe, you're anti-trans, you're all of this negative. And the worst part is, it is like giving a petulant, spoiled, rotten child even more of what he or she wants. So if they're throwing a fit about candy, we as a society today say, oh, you're mad. You actually want more candy. You won't eat your green beans before you get candy. Well, you know what? I don't want to offend you. Here's some more candy. Brian, that's what we have done as a society. And I'm telling you this, whether you're in Texas, whether you're in Florida, whether you're in Washington, New York, Colorado, we're going to have to pay the piper sometime. We cannot continue to have this cyclical thing of giving. We bend a little bit. They question our morals and values. Now we've got to accept that it's okay to see a transgender in a bubble bath on hold, an individual born with a penis now identifying as a female, pitching Bud Light. Now that's just supposed to be normal. And if you don't think it's normal, well, then the problem's on us. It's our problem. No, and they label you. Now, I mean, this week, I'm anti-trans, I'm a homophobe, I'm anti-gay. I couldn't care what you do. Just don't commit a crime and don't involve kids. And you can identify as a cinnamon roll if you'd like. I don't care. Just don't impact my life and don't commit a crime or involve children.
Ladies and gentlemen, we are being joined by Steffan Tubbs out of Denver, Colorado. He is the voice of News Radio AM710 KNUS. Steffan is also a Colorado Broadcasters Association award winner and has twice been named the best radio personality in Denver, the source of 5280 magazine and Westward. Steffan, what is the motivation of the left, if you will? What is the motivation to completely change things so aggressively and really see, like I said too, I treat everybody the way I want to be treated. I literally come in peace. I am very open with so many things. But why are they constantly stuffing and ramming all of this stuff down our throats? I mean, we can all live together in an open society, but why the jamming down, of one side and really the other side being completely muted?
Such a great question, man. You should have your own daily radio talk show. that could give you material for a month. It's a great question. Here's my thinking. I look at, especially in talk radio now, I look at the 10% on each side. I don't want anything to do with. I do not associate with. I'm a conservative. I'm a reformed from when I was younger. I'm a reformed Democrat. But when I was younger, you were younger. I think that Democrat back then, that's today's conservative. It's just, things are so crazy. I am absolutely stunned and saddened and sickened and a billion other adjectives when it comes to we'll call it the 10% on the left, which is the far left, whack job, progressive, in your face, cancel culture, shame and guilt. I hate that. I'm also not a fan of the far right 10% or so that is involved with my own party that I am a part of and registered. I think today it's goal for a lot. Not every Democrat is kind of what you were saying earlier. I think I agree. Not every Republican is what those crazies label us as. I think there's actually more of us in the middle. That 80%, sure, you're going to have people that are more left of center, more right of center. But I think right now, because we have allowed the chaos, the toothpaste is out of the tube, brother. The genie is out of the bottle. Now they really can't go back. The problem I have is, where are those fairly middle of the road Democrats that do say that they just want to get along and they have their agenda, you have your agenda on the right? Where are they to condemn the lunacy that we have seen in this country over the last few years. To your point, I think the most direct answer is they want to annihilate the conservative values that have been such a big part of the country's fabric forever. And when I say they, again, it's not every person on the left. It's not, I got family members that I will never agree how they vote or how they feel about issues. I love them. I have friends that way too. But I think there is a certain faction, and sadly, Brian, they get elected and they want to annihilate things like the Second Amendment. They want to, or drastically change it. They think that their way is the best way. And sadly, brother, I say almost every day on my program, elections have consequences. And I guess for those conservatives, for the Democrats especially, things just haven't gotten bad enough yet. And I think sometime soon, it's going to get to a point where we see more of less one-party control. But right now here, as an example, in Colorado, you've got governor, lieutenant governor, attorney general, secretary of state, treasurer, majority of Democrats in the state house and the state senate. Well, what do you think is going to happen? What we see today.
Why do you feel as if one side of the the political left, you got the political left, you got the political right? I'm a middle of the ground guy. I've got tons of conservative and Republican friends. I have some liberal Democrat friends.
Yeah.
I mean, really, I get along with pretty much every walk of life. And I've done a lot in my life. I have a lot of real life experience. We all live. We all got a heart that's beating. We all got feelings and emotions and all that stuff. It's how you kind of unpack it and continue on with life. Like I said, to treat others the way you want to be treated and to serve everybody with respect and dignity until they give you a reason to disengage and walk away. Because that's what we do. That's what I do. If somebody, is coming after me in a way that I feel threatening, and it doesn't happen very often, I mean, maybe a few times, I will just disengage and walk away and be a bigger man. Now, in my younger age, I probably would have went toe to toe. But, being 46 now and gray, I'm like, yeah, you know what? It's not worth my time. I've got my family. I've got things to live for. I have things to lose. Now, when you look at a lot of the people on the right, okay, the people that get up every day and they go to their place of work, they go to their place of business, they coach their kids, they're contributing to society, they are paying their taxes, they have everything to lose in life. Now, you have another side that does not believe in the God and the family and the freedom, that family piece, I believe, is very important. We have a lot of kids that are growing up without fathers. Yeah. We have a lot of kids that are very confused right now. They don't have that family element, if you will, at home, like a lot of other families do, so a lot of kids are being raised in the classroom by God knows who. And that's where a lot of this, these opinions and a lot of this stuff is, that a lot of it is negative, is being force fed to kids. Now, the trash in Denver, the crime, you've done a documentary, Denver and Decay. What motivated you to do that?
The motivation to do Denver and Decay was, as I mentioned earlier, the back-to-back nights of violence at the end of May, early June of 2020. And this is, of course, post George Floyd. And I could spend an hour talking about the lunacy that just here in Colorado, through legislative action, post George Floyd, the knee-jerk reaction, we've got to do something type bills, and so many of the bills that they passed in 2020 were in essence shots at law enforcement and anti-cop and defund the police crap. But specifically, I was down in downtown Denver the second night of the the riots. And, these are the worst riots that this state has ever seen. And I love this state. I can't stand the way Denver is run and everything, but I still love this state. I think it's worth fighting for. But I said, we got to do it. So I called my business partner and I said, we've got to do this film. And Brian, believe it or not, man, I will never do it again. At least I don't think. But from the moment the light bulb went off that what's going on needs to be exposed in a bigger way, to our premiere, 60 days between the idea to having interviews done and edits and production. And we premiered it on Constitution Day on September 17th of 2020. And we have had thousands of comments. And, sure, there'll be attacks on, this is a political hit job. It's not. What the film does is go through, and we go back to the 1980s on how this whole thing, it wasn't just George Floyd. This wasn't just a powder keg waiting to happen. No, this was not like this boiling point. What it was the temperature of the room, so to speak, post George Floyd. And then everybody's a racist, anti-cops, cops are bad. These people that destroyed so much of downtown Denver. And as you mentioned earlier about the more than $1 million in damage at the state capitol, this was not like, this was not a generation building up. And that was finally the breaking point. No, it was, hey, we can do this because there's not going to be any ramifications. They're going to give us a curfew and nobody's going to enforce it. They're going to say they're going to do this and they're not going to do anything. But we in the film go back to, here's how we got to that point of the toleration. And I would have exposed what I did if it were the other way. But all the film did in the first, you see, this was Democrat decisions, Democrat mayors, Democrat for the most part governors. And I say we have had thousands, if not more than 10,000 comments, and they hate me and they hate this. We've also had some praise. Don't get me wrong, thousands of interactions of people praising. But you know what? I have not to this date as we talk. Not one comment, not one email, not one phone call, smoke signals, nothing. No one, even on the side of the haters, no one said it was inaccurate, because it's not. So I think we were onto something. And sadly, brother, right now, you and I I could say, come up to Denver. Let's spend the weekend filming. We could sadly right now do a Denver in Decay Part 2. And it's worse than, believe it or not, in spots, it's worse than 2020, save for the civil unrest.
Where is the leadership in Denver? And this can be said of dozens and dozens and dozens and dozens of U.S. cities. Crime is at an all-time high. I mean, you have big box stores and chains closing neighborhood stores.
This week.
It's only going to underserve the folks of that community because the crime is too high. They're losing money at Walmart. They're losing money at all these other stores that are closing in Chicago and in Houston and Los Angeles because they're putting their employees at risk. Well, now those employees aren't going to have a job, and the people that live in that community aren't going to have a grocery store to go right down the road to do their shopping because they're losing all of their merchandise to theft and crime and armed robberies. What's the breaking point here until, for people to wake up and say, I don't want to live in a third world ran type society where literally the United States of America has become one of the most violent countries in all of the world?
Brother, it literally has been the last two radio programs that I've done. A couple of days ago, to your point, the 65,000 square foot flagship Whole Foods in downtown San Francisco at 8th and Market. As a sidebar, San Francisco to me used to be one of the greatest, most beautiful cities in the world, not just on the left coast, not in the country. And then the last 20 years happened, right? And yeah, sure, every city has its problems, but San Francisco, when I lived in California, we would go up. It was amazing. Now, are you nuts? but they close that not because of human feces on the sidewalk outside and customers can't get in, not because of construction, not because of protests against the Whole Foods chain owned by Amazon and gazillionaire Jeff Bezos. No, to your point, they announced this week they're temporarily closing a 65,000 square foot grocery store in one of the richest areas and most expensive places in an urban area to live on planet Earth. And it was due to worker safety. Here in Colorado, yesterday, went off on this story within the last few days. This may happen in other cities. I don't know if it has already. Brother, they have now aluminum foil, Reynolds wrap, tin foil, whatever we used to call it. That's now behind lock and key, because in stores in downtown Denver, specifically the Target on the 16th Street Mall, which is just pure crap and crime and drug filled, the homeless people were coming into the Target store there, going to the aluminum foil aisle and opening up the packages, tearing out their tinfoil, whatever they do with that. And they were doing the drugs right there on aisle 7. So now when we get to a point, whether it's this city, this state, or this country, where we have to lock up aluminum foil, I mean, that's a breaking point to me, sort of. But you know what? It won't be. The next thing it'll be is, well, they've come up with some new way to get high from, milk. So now the milk is behind lock and key. I think it has to come to some sort of breaking point soon. I don't know how much more collectively big cities. Now, look, if you're a farmer or a rancher, yeah, times are tough, but at least you're maybe in a rural area and these urban problems aren't necessarily prevalent every day. But one of the things we say in that Denver and Decay film is, watch out, suburbs. It's coming to you next. And you know what? We have seen that here in Colorado. It's starting to spread. Colorado, number 1 violent crime state in the country. Number 1 in auto theft. Number 2 in property crime. The number 1 state in the country for cocaine use. Not you, but you can maybe look at Colorado and go, wow, what's going on? Those people are crazy. Well, you know what? Things happen when there are zero consequences. And to me, it's the lack of leadership. It's the type of leaders. I don't even call them elected leaders anymore. They're just elected people. Something's got to give, brother. And I don't know what the tipping point is, but I feel like we're getting close.
I know a lot of people that have completely lost confidence in the system and the way we're set up. And, it can be said from the Constitution all the way to the school system, to your local schools. And you said that elections have consequences. Now, there is proof out there. And right now in the city of Houston, where I live, the city of Houston is now suing Attorney General Paxton in Texas, so they can prevent the release of records that show that there was some bad actors in the last election in the city of Houston. Now, do elections really have consequences when nobody really even has that trust and confidence that they are going to be working in the best interest of the people? At that point, we are no longer America. And again, when we have half of the country that that is so firm on one side, and you have another half of the country that's so firm on the other side, at some point, it's going to be like that bully in the school playground, to where you're going to have to square off at some point. Now, what does that look like? I have no idea. I hope it doesn't get there. I hope we can work through this. I hope we can stand united as Americans and get back to our principles, like I said, the God, the family, the friendship, the freedom that so many people in this country take for granted because they've never left their county, let alone their state. Now, what does this look like in your opinion, Steffan?
I don't condone violence. I said earlier, I'm a lover, not a fighter, but it is time. The proverbial, it's time for somebody to get punched in the nose. When I say that elections have consequences, I just want to make sure that you know what I'm talking about. Elections have consequences when left-wing, progressive whack jobs, as I call them, when they are primarily the decision makers, they are in their elected positions. Look at the consequences.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I'm talking about. So, we've talked a lot about it. I'm sure you've thought about it or talked about it here on your own program. How much is left before either that tipping point, or how bad does it have to get before people wake up? I don't have the answer to that. I love you, but I know you don't have the answer to that either. But when I say elections have consequences, you look at Colorado, for example. Number one in all of the things. Number two, excuse me, of cocaine use, number one, and property crime, number one, and assaults and rapes, and we're like this. Colorado, I thought that would be a New York, New Jersey, Michigan, California. But what I'm saying is the problems are there, and it's the progressive movement. I mean, my God, look at the district attorneys around the country. The guy in San Francisco, Chesa Boudin, they, in a left-wing progressive city like San Francisco, that guy was even too far left whack job for them. He was recalled a couple of years ago. But look at what has happened in these Democrat-controlled cities. It's not just right-wing talk show hosts or conservative family values veterans that are talking about this, but we see how bad it is. And I think there's going to be I hope there's going to be some sort of change from those who represent us. But until it gets bad enough, I wonder, I'm a big advocate, brother, on fighting it. One of the hills that I will die on is the fentanyl crisis. Well, what is it going to take before we really declare these drug cartels? I know I'm going off on a tangent, but drug cartels, terror organizations, because that's what they are. You as a veteran know, if this were any other organization or any other spot, if this were the fentanyl crisis coming out of Afghanistan, Iraq, Lebanon, Syria, Iran, we would have gone already and obliterated these places. But they're, where you are, they're within a few hundred miles into the Mexican border. We allow that. Again, what's going to happen? Is it going to take a politician's kid or nephew or cousin's brother's sister to die of fentanyl before we take that seriously? It's the house of cards right now in this country, man, is on the brink. If it's not already starting to collapse, I think we're in for some bad times if we don't wake up. And I think it's salvageable, but I think it also we need to call a timeout to letting the progressive alternative ways of thinking and policing and politicians who think they've got the best way. It's not working, man. It's not working in so many cities across the country.
What is the motivation? I just don't understand that.
I think to destroy all conservative values. I don't know.
But our society would end up we're starting to see it. I mean, we got piles of trash in all these cities in America. I'm talking trash that has been there for such a long time that it's starting to compact and the bags are starting to evaporate, and you can see the rats and the disease. And you've got city officials, I know for a fact in San Diego, that go through every single week in downtown and they spray disinfectant on the sidewalks to prevent hepatitis and all these other infectious diseases that are transmittable on the streets. Now, people say the homeless, we need to clean it up. We need to get these homeless people off the streets and give them, some sort of independence again. Maybe get them in a starter apartment and get them a job. But I have seen increasingly that these homeless people, they don't want to go into an apartment. They're having fun living in a tent with their friends. They have a dog. They have their own little community set up. They do not want to go get help. They want to live their life. They want to live on the streets. They want to live in a tent.
Yeah.
That's what they enjoy, and that's what they know. And
you know why they can do that, though, brother? They can do that because it is tolerated. If it's not tolerated, you will not see your tent cities. I want to give you a quick example. I love to travel, and I was within the last couple of months, I was blessed enough, went back to one of my favorite cities on earth, London. You know, I leave Denver, driving out to the airport, I'm passing on interstates and highways and just streets in neighborhoods in the suburbs of Denver, dozens of tents. And they, to your point, they've got the dog, they've got the bicycles, they've got the propane tanks. They're underneath freeway overpasses. And it's just, you know, well, yeah, I mean, it didn't make me drive off the side of the road. I was in shock because I was in shock because I wasn't, because it's tolerated. And I get to London in the better part of a week, and I was not just in the touristy spots. I love going to neighborhoods and everything. Not one tent, not one homeless encampment. There was very little trash. There were not broken Corona bottles in gutters. And one of the reasons is basic. They don't tolerate it there. They tolerate it in parts of the U.S. And quoting one of my favorite brothers from another mother here in Colorado, who operates a great program called Step Denver. It's a men's program, and they get these addicts and they turn their lives around, and they're invested, these men who were formerly homeless. They must work. They must get clean and sober. And the head of that program told me, and he is in Denver and Decay, and I'll never forget his comment. It was not verbatim, but when in this country did the rights and the desires of the very small minority suddenly supersede all the rest of this country, of society? And we, again, have ourselves to blame. We've either elected people who feel that way, or we just haven't been loud enough. And you know what I can say, brother, is I try and fight the good fight. I know you do every day as well. We're trying. We got to try harder. We're not doing enough. And whether it's through your influence or mine, just because we can talk to a few more people, but we tolerate it for now. And I just don't want my kids. And I know I don't want your kids, because I think they're great. I don't want anybody's children to have to live with the mess that, you know, our generation has at least tolerated, if not caused.
Yeah, you know, it's sad. You know, I've got a little girl, you know, soon to be 15 years old or 14 years old. And, you know, she's so naive and she's my angel, you know, and we drive by, you know, things with, you know, they've got a large police presence. They just had a school shooting threat, you know, at her school that put her on edge. I mean, there's so many kids right now that are facing mental health crisis in our country, the anxiety, the fear of the unknown. They see parents on edge, and the kids, they begin to do their own research, and, you know, they start to see what's going on here. What am I being told? What am I being taught? What am I hearing from my parents? What am I seeing visually with my own eyes? And really, at the end of the day, man, it is depressing to try to sit your kids down and try to explain, like, all of the craziness that we're surrounded by on a daily basis. You have DAs in cities that are letting convicted felons that have been arrested 5, 6, 7 times, picked up over and over and over again, released with no bond. And these are dangerous criminal felons who are going to get right back out on the streets and recommit to keep our cities and our communities and our counties and our states literally, you know, being held hostage, you know, by the criminals. It's like, what did I miss here?
Yeah, it seemingly has happened overnight. I know it hasn't, but you know, one of the things that in hearing about, you know, you as a father, right? I wanted to shield my kids. My kids are older now. And I've got a 22-year-old, I've got a 19-year-old, 22-year-old college grad. He's working full-time, first full-time job. I've got a college sophomore in San Diego, my hometown, and he's loving it. He's living his best life. It's living large. But, I had to have the talk. At least I felt that I did, and I'm glad I did. And I would encourage anybody watching, have you had the talk about fentanyl? This, Brian, was almost the bigger, more difficult discussion than with my boys about the birds and the bees, because there ain't no going back. I told both of them, this is no joke. My youngest son's in a fraternity, and he said about a week after I had that talk with him, he says, "Hey, Dad, I'm just glad we had that talk, that we had to go through a mandatory 1 hour kind of seminar about the dangers of fentanyl." And I'm like, thank God. But in hearing, your examples and thinking, is there anything more important than being not just a parent? I'm talking being a good parent, a good mom, a good dad. And I think one of the things that we have lost in a lot of our society today, and I'm no psychologist, I just have a lot of thoughts and I'm able to talk about it. And like I said, a few people listen. But now is the time more than ever, don't you agree, that we've got to have family values come back? I look at the school shooters. I look at somebody ripping off, a Snickers bar from 7-Eleven. What kind of family life do they have? We as men, I think for at least a couple of generations, if not more, a lot of us have failed to be good fathers. We've got to somehow realize that it's not just an act that then produces a child. You are now responsible. And we have so few, seemingly, with all the negative news, we have so few people that want to be responsible parents. And to me, brother, it starts in the home, period. And then down the road, it's about mental health and taking care of yourself. But I think it starts in the home. And I know a lot of people can say we need more God in schools. I'm not going to disagree with that at all. I mean, my God, it's controversial to say the Pledge of Allegiance in this country. Are you kidding me? When we were kids, if you didn't, the teacher would come over and rap you on the head, stand up, put your hand over your heart and recite the Pledge of Allegiance. I don't even know what percentage even of kids today know the pledge, but it starts to me in the home. And man, if we don't start going back to those values, we're not only reaping what we sow now, but down the road as well. It scares me.
Yeah, no, I agree. And like you said, you're touching a lot on fentanyl here. And, do you believe, and it's been said that China is behind this
100%.
fentanyl crisis and working in unison with the cartels to push the drugs up into the United States. Do you think that this is an attack on America from China without firing a single bullet?
No question, 100%. Book it, mark it. This is a war on the United States. We're not doing anything about it. Why
would China want to literally take out their top customer in the world?
That's a great question. And here it's interesting because we've got a film coming out with a June release. It's called Phantom, and it deals with phantom limb syndrome and pain. And it's veterans. It's someone who was attacked by a dog, sadly, multiple dogs. I want to stay focused on your question, but we're doing this film and it's going to be incredible, and it comes out in June. Then the next project we're doing is fentanyl and its impact just on Colorado. I'm also working on a proposal to do a fentanyl documentary film looking at it from a nation's perspective. Keep this in mind. You're not a good business person, are you, if you have a good product and unfortunately you kill your client, right? You kill the user. China is supplying the components that are then made into fentanyl, which is now in everything from marijuana, all of the recreational or hard drugs. Fentanyl is in it because it's cheap. It doesn't matter the weather conditions. It's cheap to do, highly addictive. Now there's a thing called Trank, which is unbelievable. But this fentanyl thing, they want to get you hooked. And if it's more potent and it's cheaper and it's highly addictive, well, that's great because that just perpetuates things, right? But the chemicals are coming in from China. Mexico knows it, though Mexico's president, who is one of the biggest jokes of leaders in our lifetime in the world, saying that we don't produce fentanyl, we don't use fentanyl, and you in America need to give your kids a hug. I will agree with the president of Mexico within the last, 7-8 weeks when he said, how come America allows this to happen to its youth? Well, that's a good question, Mr. Mexican president. I don't know why we tolerate it. But from China's perspective, you get all the stuff into Mexico. It's coming in from Canada as well. But you gotta realize the deaths of kids and your wife or my grandmother or anybody else, that's just collateral damage. That's just collateral damage. They're not trying to kill their clientele. Maybe somebody in the DEA would argue with me on that, but I don't think they would. It's just collateral damage because it's all about addiction. I've heard people, Brian, say this is China's great reset because of what the West or Britain in particular did to China with the opium crisis. I'm not smart enough to make that link, but why do we look the other way? I mentioned earlier that we need to declare drug cartels terror organizations, and we need to do something about it. And if that meant calling the president of Mexico, hey, we're going to destroy this in 2.5 hours. You can either publicly say this was a joint operation between the United States military and the Mexican authorities, or, well, we can go to war. I think Mexico would cooperate, but brother, we don't do that. We're just not doing it.
Yeah, we have the resources to put an end to the
within a week.
Within a week to the fentanyl crisis, to the
within a week
streets. We have a strong military. We have strong leaders in this, in this country. Albeit the majority of the strong leaders we have in this country aren't serving in elected positions because they are CEOs of great big companies that.
How can we not get on the same page? How can we not get on the same page? We are being attacked by an outside entity, and we can't get Republicans, Democrats, CEOs, drug manufacturers, big pharma, cops down to your local sheriff. We can't get on the same page going, we've got to stop this. Now, I will say, and I didn't mean to interrupt you, but this is all our fault. Our fault. If America did not have its insatiable appetite for illegal drugs, then I'll tell you, we wouldn't be in this position.
Mm-hmm.
So it's our fault, but we could, I say end it. I shouldn't be so bold and dumb. We could make in 7 days, we could make it to where this problem would go away very quickly. You're never going to, it's like the left, abolish the Second Amendment. Don't allow anybody to have, there's still going to be guns out there, but that would make a major impact, wouldn't it, on this country? And I say the same thing about the fentanyl crisis. If we took this seriously, and it is an outside threat, it is a war against our kids, against you and me, we could do something about it. And they just haven't.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, like you said, we've tolerated it for far too long, and everybody's gotten comfortable in their day-to-day life. And if it doesn't affect them individually, they turn a blind eye to it, and that's that. It has to really affect the person or the people or the community, whatever at large, for that change to be inspired to want to do better. And the way I was successful in Congress, I was working with liberals and Democrats and conservative Republicans and everybody. I had a seat at the table, and there's give and take in life, and there's compromise. And I'm not seeing really any compromise here by anybody. It is either like all or nothing on each side. And why can't we get back to this gray area? Why can't we get back to this middle ground and say, guys, we have got to realize and open our eyes to what's going on out there, because it's not going to get any better. And regardless of who the president is right now, what I see out there is getting worse and worse and worse every single day. The crime, the filth, the disregard for human life, humanity. I mean, on a world stage right now, we are being looked at like we are just like we've lost our freaking minds.
I think not only are we being looked at, Brian, I think we're being laughed at. And I don't really care about that. You can look at us, you can laugh at it. At the end of the day, again, you do have to wonder. I mean, I thank God every night and every morning. Thank you for the day that you've given me. Thank you for the day that you're going to give me today. And everyone right now should at least be concerned. Maybe not to the point of like concern like you and me, but kind of goes back to that theme of, are we going to wake up? And somebody had texted me on the program here in Denver earlier this week, what is going on, almost exactly to your point of what's going on and the world's perception of the US and are we really here at this point? And this texter said, I'm not doing enough. And I simply responded via text back. I said, neither am I. And we're trying, but there's got, I don't know what it's going to be, but what is the breaking point? Or maybe we could look at it and not be negative. What is going to be the turning point? And I don't mean it with Turning Point USA. I'm saying the turning point of, wow, we've seen and we've allowed and we've condoned and we've looked the other way and we've tolerated all of this stuff. And now we've got to say enough.
Yeah.
And it does go back to it. I think it just goes back to, we apparently, and in certain circles around the country, voting blocks, if you will, the pain's just not bad enough yet.
Yeah. Like I said, I pray for my country every day too. I pray for my, my family, my friends, my country. I love my country, and I don't want to see her fall. And, we are at that point where, it's getting scary. It's getting really scary out there. And
I think we need to have voices. A lot of people, one thing I will say is, I know we're wrapping up. I will just say, now is the time. You may have heard that in the past, but now truly is the time. And it could not be easier to have your voice heard. Send someone an email. My God, pick up the phone. Let them know that, praise them if they deserve praise. If somebody goes against the grain, praise them, but stay on these elected individuals. There's power in number. We've done a lot on my radio station when it comes to supervised injection sites, how those are even a possibility of here, come on in and bring your heroin, bring your hard drugs, and don't worry. I mean, we could talk for an hour about how the FDA has approved over-the-counter Narcan. I mean, that's ludicrous. It's ludicrous. Why are we worried about approving something that can help in case something bad happens? Why aren't we going by at the root of this problem? And that is, you wouldn't need Narcan if you didn't have these drugs that could kill you.
Yeah, prevent the issue,
right?
With the solution. Don't encourage them to continue to shoot up. It just doesn't make any sense, but really nothing does anymore. I don't even know up from down, because everything for the last 3.5 years has been an absolute, I've been mind blown.
It's a bleep show.
And it's depressing. I mean, it is very depressing. But folks, we are wrapping up. This has been a great interview with Steffan Tubbs. Folks, go to YouTube, go check out Denver and Decay, and you could check out some of Steffan's latest work. So with that, we sincerely appreciate everything you have done.
Much love, my man.
You in Denver and in Colorado, and your service and your sacrifice and your dedication to our great nation, and everything you do in the military and veteran community is sincerely appreciated.
Much love and congratulations to you, brother. You're an inspiration.
I appreciate you, sir. And like Steffan always likes to end his shows, I will do it too. Folks, remember our troops. Folks, remember to stay inspired, stay encouraged, stay motivated, and always stay in the fight. Until next time, for Today with Tally, this is Brian Tally. Good night, Semper Fi.